does senior paper go?
Ooh, girl, don't even get me started. Senior paper. All right.
Spicy. The author I had for senior paper was Margaret Atwood. She's a Canadian writer and women's rights activist, feminist, and environmentalist. She wrote vulgar things nonchalantly so that you could interpret it the way you wanted to. The first mandatory book I had was The Handmaid's Tale, and it was about a future city of Belize where the women were sex slaves and they were treated unfairly.
My author for my senior paper was Mark Twain. He was a very strong and biased person towards slavery. He didn't really like slavery, like most people don't, because it's a bad thing. But he was very headstrong in that general area. The first book that I had was A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. In that book, it didn't really talk much about slavery, but it did have a lot of political satire in there. Basically criticizing us as a society as a whole. Some of the strengths as a researcher that you would need would be to find credible information, basically from EBSCOhost, because that's a really good source to get your stuff from and your information, rather than going to different websites and having to search all, decide if it's credible or not, and all that extra information. You can just go to EBSCOhost and get your credible information. And some of the hard parts that I think for doing research is finding really actually good resources that work good in your paper. So finding articles that match up to your paper and your author and everything that you are putting into your senior paper.
My strengths as a researcher were taking all my information I found useful before I even started reading or any of that. I took all my sources or anything I thought would be useful in the long run and put it all on a document. The document was kind of disorganized, which was one of my weaknesses, but it definitely helped me when I needed to go back. I was like, oh, I saw a good article on that, and let me go back and look at it. And I always use EBSCOhost too, because I wanted all my sources to be credible, and I didn't want any problems with that. Luckily, there's a lot of literary criticism on the books I chose to read for my paper, so that was a bonus, I guess. When I researched my author, that was a strength. I researched the authors I thought I wanted, and as I was number like 64, I just went down the list, and as all of mine kept getting crossed off, I crossed off the names, and then I had Margaret Atwood left, and because I had researched her, I knew what to expect. My weaknesses were pretty much everything else, including procrastinating, taking the time to edit my own paper or look over it after I wrote it, trying to find quotes while I was reading the book instead of waiting till afterwards, writing my paper and then just trying to make that fit in there. That made for some hard writing. And then looking for literary devices when reading. I didn't do that at first, and then I realized I was going to need it afterwards.
I got a little extra. Those were also some weaknesses that I had. Procrastination was a really big one. I usually waited a while before I started on my next book and before I even started on my essay, which was a really bad choice because then you're up all night trying to scramble for editors. And you wanted the best of the editors, but they already had 3 or 4 essays to edit. So that was a really big struggle that I had. Yeah, and also, but the good part about Mark Twain was he had really easy literary devices in his writing. So he had basically all his writings were about satire or irony or basic stuff like that you can identify really easily. So I think that was a plus that I had when I chose Mark Twain. Some advice I'll give to the seniors for next year would be try not to procrastinate, do all your work, find literary devices as you read through your books, make sure you read very thoroughly and carefully as you read. Go on EBSCOhost and get really good information and articles to support your paper. It'll make it a lot easier. Find really good editors get them first before anybody else does, because if you don't, you'll have some weak editors and your paper will just be like not even any marks on it, and you'll think it's perfect, and you give it to Ms. Turnbaugh, and then she'll look at you, and then she'll give that paper right back to you. So just find really good editors.
My advice for seniors of the future is to not be a junior in a senior class, because you don't know anyone. Well, I know Kenya, but it's Kenya. You don't know anyone, and then you don't have any editors, so then you have to talk to people and try to go like, oh, you want to edit my paper? And they're like, yeah, no, not really, I don't know you. So then you have like slim pickings when it comes to editors, and this makes the whole situation really awkward and hard. And then when she does partners, you're like, oh, Kenya be my partner, and Kenya picks someone else, and then you're stuck with, you're not stuck with, but you have Nora, and it's because I didn't ever talk to Nora before, so it was kind of like, oh, paper, okay. So it just makes everything awkward, even when it's not, and you have to talk to people, and it makes it uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Whenever you are choosing your partners, make sure you get partners that you're comfortable with, that you know that work hard, because you two are tied together. And if your partner doesn't turn in work, then you can't turn in your work, and it's just a big old, it's just horrible. So find people, find a partner who's willing to work with you. Who, if they're behind, then at least they'll be a hardworking partner.
Class of 2015, the best class there is. 2014, glad you're gone. Yes.
Oh, she hitting dance.
Hey, what up? Don't look at me. The author I had for senior paper was Margaret Atwood. She was a Canadian.
Dude, I'm tired of these flies. They touch me.